And we'll get going here. In 10, 9, 8. Oh, there we go. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards, and joining us today is the CEO of one of the largest online grocery stores in Canada, as well as the CEO of FoodX Technologies, Mr. Peter Van Stolk. Peter, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin.
So, SPUD.ca, what does it stand for, and how does this story go?
Sure. SPUD.ca stands for Sustainable Produce Urban Delivery, and SPUD has been delivering groceries in Western Canada for about 20 years. So we've been doing this a long time, and what we focus on is sustainable ways with respect to the food systems that people eat, and our mission is to allow people to eat better food and sort of work with local small vendors and retailers to have local, organic, non-GMO products throughout the system. That's what we've been doing for 20 years. And FoodX is taking the technology that we've been using with SPUD and enabling large retailers to go online with a focus of sustainability and profitability. Because we think that if you create an ecosystem where people are focused on what's right, when food is really an important part of all of our daily lives. And so how we do that is we look at the food that people are eating, how it's grown, how it's delivered. And we created a system that allows retailers to look at small vendors, large retailers, and enable them to look at and deal with the inherent difficulties of online grocery.
Okay, well, that's great, Peter. You know, food being such a difficult challenge. What fascinates me about food really is anytime you go to a grocery store or you go to a restaurant chain, you really don't appreciate how it gets there. How does this sustainable produce urban delivery get from point A to point B?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just give you our history. Our history was a CSA. So we started it as back in the day when organic food wasn't prevalent in grocery stores. Farmers needed a system that they could actually get their produce to customers. So CSAs were community-supported agriculture. And so as a community-supported agriculture, we would work with local farmers, specifically organic farmers, and offer their produce to customers in many different forms. But it started with a CSA box. So you as a customer, you'd order your box, and every week we'd send you produce that was grown locally. And from that, it evolved into a groceries. So people then said, we really love your vegetables. Now, can you sell us milk? And can you provide us with fish? Can you provide us with staples? And so from basically 200 SKUs of produce, we've grown into 30,000 SKUs of grocery items. So that's what SPUD has done over the years. And in that process, we've looked at how the packaging impacts customers from recyclability. We've looked at the ingredients. We have a banned ingredient list. So we take it quite seriously that what the food that you're feeding your families and how you should look at that. And so we take, for example, on banned ingredient lists, we look at what the US has banned, we look at what Canada has banned, and we looked at what the EU has banned. And unfortunately, they're not consistent among those three jurisdictions. So what we do is say if it's banned in the UK or banned in EU, that probably means that it's not good for you. And even though it's not banned in Canada, we actually then remove that from the system. So our team is constantly looking for products that we know meet the criteria that our customers want, which means that they want to be sure, trust that what we are providing them is good for their families. And they don't even have to think about it because we won't have it. So we don't sell high fructose corn syrup. We don't sell products with high fructose corn syrup. And there's lots of reasons why we don't sell sodium benzoate. So there's just ingredients that we say, hey, these are not like, we're not making judgment calls. We just said that that's not who our customer is. And customers appreciate the fact that we do all this work to determine what is very important for them and their families.
Yeah, especially as a customer, anyone listening to this right now, if you're an educated consumer, you're thinking non-GMO, you just mentioned, okay, is what I'm eating treated with pesticides? Is it bad for the environment? Is it fair trade? Is it good quality product? So these are all things that a lot of educated consumers are thinking about before they make a decision. And they think that their purchase might be a vote toward a better world, a better food world. So, Peter, the question I have is, organic foods, a lot of these fair trade products coming directly from smallholder farmers might be a little bit more expensive. Whole Foods model, they have non-GMO foods as well as just your regular foods, and they let the customer buy. Has an increase in cost affected your company, and what are you seeing with SPUD?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've chosen that we're not going to have conventional. We're in the SPUD, we're selling organic, but we also sell local, and local has sort of a variety. Is that when you go to your local farmer's market and you're talking to the farmer who's grown organically, because there's a process to certify organic, but you feel comfortable with that farmer because you know where they live, you know the farm, and they've shared that too. We actually do the same thing. So we have organic produce that is certified organic. Then we have local, that where the farmer is actually stating that he is or she is not growing that with pesticides, and it meets the requirements, but it's not certified, because some of these small farmers cannot afford to get certified organic because it's a very expensive process, but they're growing organic food. So we try and find that when we know where that farmer is, we walk the fields with them, we talk to them about their products, we understand it. And it's just like you going to a farmer's market where you're standing at their stall, and they're sharing to you why they do what they do. And that's how we operate. We think it's really important to create a food ecosystem that customers and people can appreciate, that it's transparent, they understand what's going on, and that the people trust the food that you're delivering to them. And that's how we operate.
So let's take an example, maybe, Peter. Let's illustrate this for our audience. If I wanted to buy bananas, just a rack of bananas from you, how to get from point A to point B, and would it be less or more expensive for me?
Sure. So bananas are a great example. And I'd love to tell you, if we want to change the world and be a great society, let's focus on bananas. So thank you for bringing up bananas, because it's a passion of mine. First and foremost, bananas are the number one selling produce item in the world. And there's really two types of bananas. You have bananas that are conventionally grown, or bananas that are organically grown and fair trade. So we sell organic fair trade bananas. Now, it's unique that a conventional banana is about 10 cents more or less expensive than an organic banana. But when you're buying a banana, it's the first time in produce that there's no nutritional difference between a banana that's conventional or a banana that's organic. What you're making your decision on is what's right for the farmer and the soil that's being grown. Because what you're seeing is that, yes, you can buy a conventional banana. That nutritional factor is exactly the same as an organic banana. The difference is that 10 cents is going to where the farmer, how the farmer grows, the pesticides. And the scary thing is that on a farming perspective, bananas use the highest amount of pesticides and fungicides per 1 kilometer growing than any other produce item. So if we start to think of this as how we are going to change the world, we have to realize that having a safe planet is just as important as having good produce. So if you think about bananas, they grow in tropical air. Where do all those pesticides, fungicides, and all those chemicals roll off? They roll off onto the people that grow it, and the soil and the oceans, and they pollute around it. So I'm a big proponent that says, yes, you vote with your dollar. If you want to choose a conventional banana, you're making that decision. But if you choose an organic banana, you're choosing a system that is better for your children, not because of the nutritional factors, but you're choosing a banana or a produce item that's better because there's no fungicides or pesticides going in the ocean. And the people that are growing those things are not getting sick for the food that you're eating. And that's a unique conversation that we have with our customers about the difference in cost. So yes, it's 10 cents more per banana, but is that 10 cents worth it when you really think about it? And can you get excited about changing the world on a banana? I'm the firm believer that if we all said we're not going to buy conventional bananas, we would actually change the planet.
Well, let's stick with the bananas and let's go bananas here today. I love this company, and I know the CMO, Nick Ingersoll, Barnana. And what they do is they upcycle bananas. So for our audience out there, they take all the ugly bananas that are going to get thrown away and they turn them into healthy, delicious, bite-sized snacks they sell.
Sure.
Upcycling is a part of the circular economy. And,
totally.
And this is a similar trait and feature to what SPUD is doing as well. Would you maybe help our audience understand how or what SPUD's role is in the circular economy and how this kind of works?
Sure. Well, let's just talk about food waste for 1 second. So food waste is, if we looked at food waste holistically, it would be the number 3rd country in the world for greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at Project Drawdown and you think about what we can do as a society, do the top 100 things that we can do to change the planet, you'd find that food is listed in the 8 of the top 20. And food waste, if I'm not mistaken, is number 3 or 4, but it's in the top 5. So food waste is incredibly important. So when you're talking about upcycling something, or you're talking about understanding we grow food and throw it away, which is a system that is whacked and that is completely wrong. So from our system, first of all, we want, as a retailer, we know that traditional retailers have about 6% shrink or food waste. At SPUD, we have 0.5%. So that's an incredible difference from anyone else. And then it starts with how we order. We don't have displays of bananas where you can go into a store and touch every banana, pick the ones you want. And a thing about produce, and I'm just focusing on produce now, but every time somebody touches a leafy green or a banana or something, it actually deteriorates the banana and it makes food waste happen even faster. And that's, think about the number of people who touch the tomatoes that you're about to buy from a grocery store. There are thousands of people who've touched those tomatoes, and they build these beautiful displays. And then what happens is those displays have to be taken down, and there's a portion of that display that has to be thrown away. So what we've sort of said is that we look at this system from the time that you order your product to the time you get it to your door, and we try and eliminate things that could actually cause the produce to go bad, thus causing it to be thrown away or causing problems with it. We then look at, saying, when it is going off, how can we upcycle, repurpose it? So we then use it for banana bread. Because it's an old banana made into a phenomenal banana bread is a phenomenal product. So we look at everything that we do from the system of how can we first eliminate it in the first place, because it's you want to stop. And then when there is waste, how can you repurpose that waste into a better product? And it's sort of upcycling, like the gentleman or the company you mentioned. Those are what we do. And so we take it from holistically coming into the system so we don't over order, which is if you eliminate your over order, you're eliminating the waste. You then have a system where you're not damaging the products within your sales cycle. So we eliminate the damaging of the product. We don't have over inventory of it with respect to displays. So we're ensuring that we're having the right product for the customer at the right time without causing excessive waste. And that's what we think retailers need to start to think about, is because we cannot afford to have these products. It's $400 billion of food is thrown away before it even gets to the stores. That's their number. It's insane.
It is insane. It is insane. I mean, I think the stat was like, we produce enough food to feed everyone on the planet. We just don't distribute it properly.
Right.
So it's interesting to think about. And, something like this for our listeners out there could be applied to almost any industry. I mean, look at clothing. Yeah. Look at clothing and fashion. The thing for me is difficult is, you have all these, say recycled materials or recycled plastics that are originally were make to waste and then now are collected and recycled. But if I have a pair of shoes and I grow out of them and I'm a kid and I'm not a part of the shared economy, I'm probably going to throw those away, or unless I donate in the Goodwill, or they tear apart, even that goes back to the landfill. So ultimately, my hopes of recycling and being a conscious consumer will go back to that, to the landfill or something like that, and not be decomposed and be harmful for the environment and have a lot of CO2 emissions because of the transportation that's involved in that way. Now, transportation is what I want to move on to next. How are you looking and measuring at your carbon emissions, and what are the extra steps that SPUD is taking to decrease their impact on the environment?
Sure. First of all, it's transparency. So if you are ordering SPUD today, we tell you the food miles, how far that product has traveled. Now, bananas, again, I don't want to go back to bananas, but there's a number one selling produce item, and we don't grow them in Canada, nor do you grow them in the United States. Or unfortunately, in Puerto Rico, there's some markets that do grow bananas, but in mainland United States, we don't. So first of all, you need to know how far that bananas travel, because that's your carbon footprint. So every product that we sell has a food mile attached to it.
Wow.
We track, and so you as a consumer know how far that product has traveled. So you can make a decision based on, do you want, and you can shop if you say, I want to shop within X amount of food miles, meaning my total food mile for my order is this, we give you the option to do that. So we present products that have traveled fewer, all these different things, but it's about information. And providing the consumer with the right information is critical at the time. So that's where first step is. What we do is we provide the information for you to make the decision. And the second thing that what we do is through Food Mile is that we have a circular system where our trucks go out full delivering groceries, and they come back, and any truck will do this. It will come back empty. We use that backhaul to service our local vendors so that we know that trucks go out full. How can we use that backhaul, which then is reducing the carbon footprint, because the trucks are not delivering to us empty. We're using a truck that's already in the field, is coming back, picking up produce, bringing it back to our facility, going out in a circular system. We also use a reverse logistic to take back plastics that cannot be recycled in our traditional municipal landfills. So we have a take back program where our customers then can put back items into their bins, and we will properly recycle them. So where we are going as a retailer, we want to be accountable for the products that we sell and the packaging that we sell inclusive. So if you think about it right now, grocery store, when you buy a product right now, Kevin, you're looking at the nutritional facts panel. So you know what the nutrition is. You're looking at the ingredients, but are you truly understanding what the packaging is? So what we've started is that we have 3 fact panels. One is your ingredients. So you don't want products with certain ingredients because from your diet perspective. 2, you want to understand the nutritional fact panel. But 3rd, what we've done is this product recyclable in your community? So we service 5 communities that have different municipal recycling requirements because they are all different. So some products can go in the landfills, some can't, some go in recycling. We identify by the community where you live. So if you lived in Chilliwack, which is in a community outside Vancouver here, or if you lived in Pemberton or Whistler or Edmonton or Calgary or Victoria, there are different zones that have different community recycling programs. Each of the products that we sell is identified within the community that you live in, so that you know that if you bought this product, that you can put it back and it is recycled. If it's not, then we will take it back and recycle it for you properly. That's how we think. We take the conversation, put the information first and foremost to you, and we educate people that says, it's not just about the ingredients anymore. It's not just about the nutritional facts. It's also about the packaging. So today our team, we have, as you know, we're a B Corp, and we're very proud of what we do. We have a sustainability team that's looking at egg cartons. So how can we sell reusable egg cartons? So there is a meeting going on today, and you maybe see people walking back and forth. They're coming from a meeting that's discussing egg cartons. That is so kind of cool. And we have a reusable kind of whole thing about how do we reuse and recycle certain things. I'm a big proponent that, and I like what some of the other brands are doing, is they're starting to promote non-virgin plastic, because until we legislate that retailers or that brand holders have to use recycled plastic, it's still cheaper for them to use virgin plastic. So the system is continuously broken because we're focusing on recycling, but nobody wants to use the materials that we're recycling because it may have an off color or it may not be. So it's still cheaper to use virgin plastics. And we're a big proponent of saying, hey, you're going to be using some packaging. That's a reality of 2020, and it's probably going to be a reality of 2022. Reduce as much packaging as you can. And if you're going to use packaging, then force the brand owners to use recycled plastic in their production, because the greater the amount of recycled production is, the more you're taking out of landfill. So that's how we look at it.
Yeah, Peter, there's been a lot of leadership changes amongst big corporations, the SC Johnsons, the Unilevers, saying we're going to be using recycled plastic now, and we're going to insert a tax or like some type of premium on virgin plastics. And just for our audience, really quick, we've been throwing around some big words. Drawdown to me, is that just drawing down the carbon emissions to like regenerative soils?
Project Drawdown, yeah. So projectdrawdown.org is an organization that is from collective minds of scientists around the world that have said, okay, we're not on this bus to abyss. We as consumers, we as individuals, we as citizens of this community, we have things that we can do to change that. So they've listed the 10 things that we can do, or the 100 things that we can do. That's the impact on carbon emissions. And so, like number 3 or 4, as I said about food waste, but number 4 is educating women. And these are so many cool things, and I'm a big fan of Project Drawdown because it's a scientific matter. And I'm finding it very difficult when we debate science, because it's hard to debate science. If we are just saying this is scientific, that we are heating, the world is getting hotter, we have to address those issues. What are some of the things we can do to stop that rise in temperature? And that's what I really like about it, because it talks about it in there's no blame. We're not blaming, we're not making someone wrong, we're not making someone, it's just reality. And so that's what I really like about it. So our team works off that document, and I would recommend your listeners to go to project.drawdown.org. And it feels empowering, because right now sometimes we feel that we are on this bus to abyss.
Right.
And we have no control over anything. And, you talked about your upcycling your shoes, and you talked about clothes. And those are things that there are things that we can do. And Patagonia is doing some really cool things. I like what they're doing on their take back recycled clothes. I see that as the consumers are really excited about that. And there was a recent report that I published on my LinkedIn file that said that Nestle's, and I just have it right here, is that Nestle just did Nielsen.com just came out that said 73% of consumers would change behavior to reduce the impact on the planet. That's very, very powerful for everyone who's in the business of providing goods to consumers. Consumers want products that have a low impact on the planet. They want to feel like they're part of the solution. So one of our trade lines is be part of the solution. So if you shop at SPUD, we're saying you're being part of a solution to a bigger problem. And with respect to the cost that you brought up, yes, it is more expensive to eat organic. And let's just quickly answer the question why. Because you're not spraying chemicals with a machine. You're actually, someone's going through the field and weeding it. So there are products that the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So we recommend people look at the Dirty Dozen. We recommend that people look at the Clean 15. And we're saying these are just common sense things that you can do. And so obviously we promote to children, and because a lot of our customers are moms, and they're concerned about the food they give to their children. So from our side of it, we think it's really important that they have the knowledge and the information. So first and foremost, it's about providing transparency, knowledge, and being accountable. And then people can make the right decisions. That's where we see it happening. And, we're very, very committed to providing the information to our consumers to make the decisions that is best for their families.
Well, thanks for breaking that down for us. You and I both think it's really important for our audience and people listening, is just to understand these terminology. Because
sure,
starting out and doing these podcasts, it was kind of confusing, and throughout doing hundreds and hundreds of these, now it makes sense. But to people listening for the first time, I get a lot of feedback saying, "Hey, can you break down some different terms for us?"
Sure,
just so they make sense.
No.
So really quick, and then we'll go on to, I want to continue with packaging and the infrastructure. Shared economy, I threw that out there. Shared economy to me, just think like Airbnb or a car sharing service, or sharing utensils or hardware, just not buying new products when you can actually just use them for like a one-time use. We talked about single use and non-virgin plastic. Single use to me, and I was thinking about the circular economy people. You make a product and then you waste it. That's a linear economy. The circular economy, you can make it to be made again or to decompose. So that's like kind of how I break those down. But for packaging, very important issue. And a lot of listeners are listening to say, well, Peter, what if I want some ice cream? How do you get that to me? Is there something that you do? Do you freeze it? Do you put it in a freezer bag? How does that packaging change for a product that needs to be frozen?
Sure. So you as a consumer have to decide on what the packaging that you works well with you in your ecosystem. And I think the municipal recycling is in yours where you live is your ecosystem. So you first have to know what they can accept. And that's the first piece. And when we talk with customers, they don't know that they can do what they can do with these things. So again, it starts back with real clear information. You live in this community B. This is the infrastructure they have for plastics. This is the infrastructure they have for compostables. This is it. This is how their system. So first, know what you have within your ecosystem or your community. That's a very important belief to me personally, because if you don't know that, then you could be making mistakes that they've already spent money to build these recycling things and we're not using them properly. So that's crazy, man. That makes me crazy because let's just know this stuff. Let's know what we're doing and play properly. And so from our perspective is that if we can give you that information at a click of a button, that your order, your product, your ice cream, you choose this one, it's in plastic and it can go in your facilities or your municipal recycling center, or you choose this one and it's glass and it's recycled. Is glass better than plastic? We have a whole system on that. We tell you what they work, how, the difference. And there's not a perfect system. And I think that's what we're trying to say. And in 2020, we've created a food system that it's not perfect. So let's not try and be perfect, but let's try and make the biggest changes that we can make to have the biggest impact that we can have. So, and from our perspective, that starts with knowledge. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we believe that people will make the right decisions when they have the right information, if they care about if they care about them more, about the planet more than that 10 cent on the banana. And that's why bananas come back to us. It's really important because you're making a decision. That decision is your decision. Do you want to spend 10 cents more for an organic banana and know that you're not putting any pesticides, fungicides, and causing the families of those workers to be put in harm? Or do you want to spend 10 cents and get a cheaper banana? That's your choice. And we hope that people are making those choices that spend that 10 cent more better. And according to Nielsen's, they would change their behavior. So now if people are growing more organic fair trade bananas, obviously the cost of organic fair trade bananas will come down and that 10 cents will be 5 cents. But you're not sending all those chemicals into the ocean that are killing the fish that are, and killing the people. It's just mind numbing that to me that we have to look at it this way.
Yeah, Peter, it's I think you hit on an interesting point that I didn't think you were going to say. And you said it's imperfect right now. Our system is imperfect. And what I think of that is as I don't know where I stand right now on plastic and plastic recycling because the infrastructure is not as robust as it needs to be right now in the United States. And the reason I say that is because if I recycle something and it's plastic, it's going to take a certain amount of years to biodegrade in landfills. If I use it for recycler now, it's going to be it's going to have a lot of costs. And if you compare that to something like paper, like if you use a paper bag at a store, I didn't know this until a couple of weeks ago, but I heard now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm quoting somebody that we had on the podcast earlier who was also a Real Impact Award winner. She was saying paper I think it takes a lot more water to create and use. Therefore, in theory, it's more environmentally damaging than plastic for bags. So I didn't know that. It's interesting to think about. So for SPUD, what are some of the things that we all have to be, I guess maybe humility is the word, humble is the word about in terms of our products and where we place them?
Yeah. So again, I think, Kevin, you said it really, we don't have a perfect solution. Let's start with that. So let's not make anyone wrong, and let's get better at what we're doing. And you're completely correct on recycling. In the United States, recycling, China stopped accepting 100 containers a day from the United States with garbage. They stopped it. The Philippines have stopped it. So we've been shipping our garbage to other countries for them to deal with, because we can't fill it. And I don't know if you just saw the announcement that China is now banning single-use plastic, and they are filled. So they created a system in China where they have 100 football fields that in size to deal with waste. And that was going to be designed to last 25 years. It's filled today. Now, I find that really exciting, because you have a nation now, good, bad, or indifferent, but they're seeing that we have to change. And when these legislations occur that says, okay, we have to change this, you're seeing that in the EU. We're doing a lot of work in the EU right now, and we're seeing retailers are hearing that legislation is coming, they have to change it. SPUD, we ban plastic bottles. We do not sell still water in plastic bottles. We do not sell it. And we're just saying that we're making that commitment to it. And we did an analysis. Is aluminum cans better? Is plastic? Yeah. But, the reality is that we live in Vancouver, Canada, and Vancouver has really good water. So bottled water is just a convenience. So now we're buying bottled water as a convenience, not because we have a water issue, is because we have a convenient issue. And so we're putting more garbage in the planet because we want to be convenient. And so the convenience that we have is something that we have to address. So at SPUD, we just said, our decision at SPUD is that we don't use plastic bags. So we're the only retailer that doesn't deliver in plastic bags in e-commerce. It's not an option. You don't have to push a button. You just don't get them. It's not up to chewing. There's no debate. If you want to shop from us, we're not going to deliver it to you in plastic bags, period. And we're able to work with our partners. In this case, we work with delivering groceries under the FoodX for our partner here in Vancouver, Walmart, which is the world's largest retailer. And we've said, you can't deliver if you're going to use our service in plastic bags. And they don't. And that's what's so exciting, because large retailers are looking at this and saying, hey, this makes sense. And when we said that we were going to work with Walmart, our community was like, whoa, dude, what the hell are you doing? That's crazy. And this is really important, because if we are going to change the world and stop the insanity that we're doing, we can't make people wrong. We have to make them strong and make them better. And it's not about saying that Walmart's good or bad. It's how do we improve what Walmart's doing to make it better for the planet? Now, SPUD is a very small company, tiny, tiny, tiny on the scale of thing. And Walmart is the largest retailer in the world. So if we are going to, in fact, change in the world, we need to be able to communicate to companies such as Walmart, such as, some of these companies that you listed, Unilever, you list all these other, and make them start to see the importance of making change, because that's when you're going to have the mass change that's going to have an impact on a global basis. And I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, is that we've been able to communicate to people in a way that's effective. It's purposeful, it's exciting, but it's not making them wrong. Now, and I think one of the things that I believe in is that food should not be treated as a luxury tax. Just because our consumers may have more means to buy organic because it's more expensive, we shouldn't make people who have less means we should make good food accessible to people with less means, instead of saying it's all about the price. So we have to sort of work in that system. So that's why it's so exciting about FoodX, and that's our vision of FoodX, is that we want to enable large retailers to make better decisions with respect to delivery of food and how to deliver food in a more economical and more sustainable way than they've ever done before. And that's what we get excited about every morning. So it is a big, big goal, and it is a scary goal. And, but if we don't do it, who's going to do it? I have a 26-year-old daughter who, I want to go to my grave saying, I tried. I made something. I made a difference. I didn't. we came into a society or into a time in this world where was very abundant. Now we have to use technology, innovation for sustainability. And that's what we're all about at FoodX. And we've taken our hyper local kind of very militant opinions on sustainability, and we've moved them into a platform that enables retailers. Like today, I was just with a retailer that has, probably 8 billion in revenues, and we are talking sustainability. How cool is that? Like that is so cool. How can they take some of the shit that works for them, and they're open to those ideas? That is really, really cool. And, that's what we've been able to do as a company, where we're not trying to make someone wrong, and we're not yelling and screaming, calling them names. We're saying this is a real problem. Let's move past this craziness of making something black and white, because it's not. It is gray. It is not perfect, but it's got to be better. And that's what we're seeing. And I'm really excited about the future, because I think it's creating an opportunity for people to get really good at stuff. And so from SPUD, we are like this little incubator that's testing this crazy stuff. And then if it works, we can then show it to big retailers and see if they want to use it. And the reason why they would want to use it, because let's just talk about food waste, Kevin, for 1 second. Food waste is the one thing that we should do as a society, because every retailer should be on this boat or on this bandwagon so fast, because it's costing them money. So if a retailer is spending 6% of their retail sales in throwing away profitable goods, that's not good business. So let's make this not about this or that. Let's make this about good business. So if they can cut their shrink or their food waste from 6% to 0.5%, that's more profits. And we live in a capitalist society where profits are good. So let's make saving the environment profitable. Let's make it say that, how can we do it, and not make it say, well, we're going to put windmills up there and it's going to cost all this and everybody. No, we're putting windmills up there because it is profitable and it's better. And that's how we want to talk within the food ecosystem.
It's interesting, Peter. It's such an existential problem, and let's take for example. Let's say it's 2050, and we all haven't been wiped out by a meteor or a pandemic, and I don't know what's going on right now in China, but hey,
yeah, exactly.
Let's say we're not wiped out yet, and the population doubles, which means the food supply is supposed to double to fit. It's supposed to increase 50 to 70%. Like that's what it needs to get up to. We heard from a general of the U.S. military. Biggest threat isn't our enemies; it's food scarcity.
Right.
So these big questions are out there. Now you said no, we don't have. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's an empowerment thing. It's an education thing. Do you believe these big brands, these companies like Walmart, are coming to you because they're taking market share, or do you think they're coming to you because they're seeing these big problems, they are realizing them, and they're saying, "Oh shit, these guys know how to solve it. Let's go to them and talk to them."
I think it's a combination of everything, right? So I think, as I said, you look at food waste, right? So there's $400 billion of food wasted before it even gets to the store. So how efficient is that system? Like like there's food waste. There's three functions of food waste. One, at production to grocery, 2 at grocery, and 3 in consumers. So you can't solve the problem without looking at the 3 channels of food. So we waste food producing it, we waste food selling it, and we waste food consuming it. That's it. So, and if we talk about food waste and in a general sort of area, food waste would be the 3rd largest country behind the United States and China for greenhouse gas emissions. So here you have common sense, and I'm not that smart, but let's just common sense. You have an inefficient system that we built over the years that is causing us to have more greenhouse gases than required, and also causing retailers, consumers, and producers to pay more for the food that we grow. And now we have a challenge that we won't have enough food to grow in the future. So let's take this and reconnect and rechange the way we're thinking and turn it on its head and say, okay, we have 3 separate problems. Now, does SPUD in our mind, do we solve the first problem? No, but we identified it. We can help food retailers and small local farmers with their excess product. Do we do that? Yes. But how? So now we show that how that works to the large players. Second, do we help the food waste issue at the sale point when produce, or grocery items are sold? Yes. Why do we do that? We have technology that does it. And now we have to talk about the consumer. So the consumer now has to be responsible for their food waste and how they, but all those three are entwined, and it's all a really good conversation. And it's a conversation that people can understand. Yeah. And it's just saying right now is that it's the food waste that we're doing is basically causing the issues that we're having. So I'm just going to go back and say the three things that I would really look at is, what are we responsible for? Well, we picked this side, and what do we want to do is we want to educate consumers on how they can save money. Both of those things save the consumer money and save retailers money, and they're better for the environment. So when we say that our mission is to use innovation and technology to provide an eco-food system that is sustainable and profitable, we think that's a mandate that people can get behind, because profitability is about reducing costs, providing healthier food to consumers who can afford it or who want it, but also making healthier food available for people who have less means than others. And that's really what we want to do.
Peter, what are, in terms of like government policy that can really help out these economies? I mean, let's take a look at this really quick. You mentioned China. They were taking our trash. And I just want to get this right. From what I've read, China was taking not trash, but they're taking recycled products.
Correct.
Because
Correct. I call it trash because you were just throwing it in the garbage.
Right. And so, China, not in terms of GDP, I think they were like, 17 or 18 years ago. And then they started taking these recycled products to fit their manufacturing needs. I'm not going to claim that China or India is like a great, role model for carbon emissions, but they're doing great jobs in terms of, I didn't even know about the single-use plastic ban that they're doing, but they're different. They're different countries. You look at Europe, you look at China. I mean, those can have really effective solutions, government solutions, because of how they operate and work, and like where it's government funded, state funded, versus America, the capitalist. You're making a company in your bank, or Canada, free markets, things like this. So in terms of, let's just take Canada and the United States, for example, are there any government policies or changes or recommendations that you have seen or thought of that you think could actually be an effective solution for market-driven solutions?
Well, I can't really speak to the U.S. market right now, so I'm going to not talk about it.
Sure, yeah.
But in Canada, the current Liberal government last year in June of 2019 announced that they are going to, by 2021, they're going to make retailers accountable for the products they sell, including the packaging. If you look at Europe,
that's big.
Their European governments are forcing legislation. And unfortunately, that's where we have to use a government. What it's designed to do, it's designed to make the hard decisions that are better for the groups. And by meaning the groups, the community, or the citizens of that country. So a government's decision is, in my opinion, does have to make some tough choices. That's what a government does. And it has to look at the information, the data, the science, and says, we are going to cost us more in healthcare. It's going to cost us more in environmental disasters. It's going to cost us more in all these things. So we are making a decision that may not be perfect, but this decision, and we're seeing those decisions being made in the EU and in Canada. We're also seeing those decisions made as effectively as this week in China. So those are the tough decisions. So I think one of the things that we talk about a fair market economy, and we talk about capitalist society, but we're also talking about, governments, and governments are saying, they put a speed limit on when you drive. That is regulated by the government. You cannot drive as fast as you want through a school zone because it's unsafe. And no one complains about that. So there are going to make some decisions that they have to make with respect to how we do business. And unfortunately, that's not going to be great for companies that want to do business the same way they were doing, because the way they were doing business isn't the way they should do business in the future. And we have to address that. And I think one of the things that is just common sense is that's the role of government, to put in policies that are designed to better the total our total communities, not just better certain individuals. I see that happening in certain markets. And I think you're going to see Australia come really, really hard on stuff right now, because they've taken it a really hard approach with the fires, and they're going to make some really tough decisions. So you're seeing China, you're going to see Australia, you're seeing the EU, you're seeing countries make tough decisions that need to be made.
So the question,
be part of the solution. Yeah, that's a trade.
I want to be a part.
Yeah, we want to be part of the solution, not just complain about it and not be part of the problem. So if your listeners are just listening and say, hey, that's a really nice statement. I want to be part of the solution. I just want to be, I just want to be part of a solution because we all have choices, right? We choose, and we all can choose and vote with our dollars. And it's unfortunately that not everybody, and I totally get that not everyone has the social economic means to vote with their dollars that we do. So we have to address that. And it's not making them wrong. But the goal is to make them strong. And I really believe that we need to be part of the solution right now and put our and I'll say this, our political biases aside and play for a bigger group. And one of the things that I think is really important is that we are one people. And it doesn't matter what, the United States does. If China rots the planet, the United States is going to get impacted. If the United States rots the planet, China is going to get impacted. We live in a global community, and that hasn't sunk into a lot of consumers that we are all enjoying this one beautiful place we call Earth. And we don't have these boundaries of United States, Canada, because we're all breathing the same air. So if we are going to cut down the rainforest and those are the lungs, then that will impact someone in Alabama. That is a reality, and it's not up to debate. It's not fake news. It's just a freaking reality. So let's address that and say, what can we do to be part of the solution? Well, if you look at kelp, we can grow kelp, which can create lungs, because we have this amazing opportunity to grow kelp that can provide the same sort of lungs as the rainforest. But that is a new solution to a problem that we've got. So we are smart enough as a people to solve the problem. We're just not smart enough to get out of our own way, to stop blaming other people for doing it and playing by old, stupid rules, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Sorry.
Pete, for our audience listening to this, they're saying, man, this guy really gets it. He's really enthusiastic about what he does. Seems like he actually feels like he's contributing to that solution. Why do you do what you do? Well,
my background is I started a soda company, and when I realized that I didn't want to sell sugar water, I left that company. And I realized that, you're looking at someone who started a company that realized that sugar water, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished starting that company. And I'm also proud that I was the first and only CEO that said you should drink only one of my sodas a week because it's a treat. And it's a treat, and you shouldn't drink them every day. And it's saying that my daughter was allowed to have one soda a week. And that was it. That's where I think it's moderation. We have a choice. And so when I was working with the soda company, I realized that I have to be better. And so after that, I looked at the companies, and SPUD was organic. SPUD was sustainable. SPUD touched all the values that really mean something to me. And it allowed me to understand and take my knowledge of the food system that I work with and provide hopefully a better solution for other people. And also understand that we live in Canada is 200, I'll talk in miles. Most cities in Canada are within 100 miles of the US border. So do we not think that the air is going to cross from one country to the next? Like,
Right.
do we not think the water that the fish that we swim, like the fish don't really have a border? Where there's, Canadian fish, American fish, they're all going to be impacted. We all are buying food for bananas from 4 countries in the world. And so this is crazy, Bill, that we think that we're in these surrounding the world. So that's what I sort of thought. Sorry about that little, but that's what I believe.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm pretty jealous of fish that don't need a passport and that go, country to country nowadays. Hate those guys.
Yeah.
But Peter, you mentioned choices. We can all make a choice. Our choices impact everything. So choices and decisions, you mentioned organizations and politicians have to make tough decisions. It's a trait of leadership. So Peter, the last question I have for you today is, what is your definition of a real leader?
I think you answered it. Unfortunately, a real leader listens to the facts. And first of all, they're smart enough to listen to people from other perspectives. So a real leader has the ability to listen and listen to other people because there's so many different perspectives. And then you acknowledge their perspective, but you don't have to agree with it. That's the one thing that I think a real leader does. He has to acknowledge, or he or she has to acknowledge. Doesn't have to agree. They have to acknowledge because they have to make the person feel like they're being heard. Then they have to weigh that information within the community and the company or their whatever their sort of sphere of influence is, and they have to make a decision that's best for the community as a whole. And they have to then be able to justify and clearly explain why. They're not going to make everyone happy. Unfortunately, you're not in life. You can't make everyone happy. But what you can do is you can listen to everyone, acknowledge what they're saying, and explain why. Now, if we all understand that we're playing on the same football team, and I use sports analogy very easily because people get it. You're playing on one team. As soon as we've got to get back to playing on one team. And as soon as you play on one team, you explain what the objectives of the team is, you explain what the rules of the game are, and you explain where we're going. And a leader has to effectively explain the rules, the objectives, and the goals. And they have to do that by effectively listening to the people on the team. So that's what I think a real leader does. And they make tough decisions based on acknowledgement and support. And so it's not making you wrong and yelling and screaming and calling people names. That's not leadership. That is the furthest thing from leadership. What leadership is acknowledging and making the decisions that work for this community that you support.
Oof, man, what a show today, Peter. I'm glad we were able to make this work out today with the trouble we were having earlier on the show and the screen. Gosh, we talked about a lot today. We talked about bananas, organic, transportation, to the packaging, to shared economy, circular economy, single use, China. We talked about market share and social pressure, infrastructure, and lastly, Peter, why you do what you do. So for Peter Van Stolk, I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, play on one team, people, make tough decisions, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.